The hall went silent the moment the old man raised his trembling hand. The chandelier light caught the edge of his wrinkled face as he stood between the bride and groom, his agbada dusted with the same street grit where they had first met. "Everything I own," he said, voice thin but sharp enough to cut through music and whispers, "every house, every shop, every plot, belongs to these two from tonight." Gasps shot through the crowd like sparks. Aunties dropped their fans. Uncles exchanged quick looks. A few men in starched kaftans laughed like it was a joke that had gone too far. The groom Malik squeezed the bride's fingers. The bride, Nia, stared at the old man as if she feared he might change his mind and melt away. From the back of the hall, a heavy-set man in a navy suit rose slowly, eyes hard, jaw set. "Over my dead body," he muttered, loud enough for cameras to catch, and began to push through the guests toward the stage. Before anyone could blink, the hall doors slammed open. Two men in black coats stepped in, their faces half hidden. One flashed a badge. "We need to speak to Chief Adeyemi, now." The old man's shoulders sank and he looked at Nia with a small, private smile. "Do not be afraid," he whispered. "You did the right thing when no one else would." The music died completely. Someone cut the cake knife into the board with a harsh clink. The man in the navy suit stopped, caught between the stage and the newcomers, his mouth twisting. "Chief," the badge holder said, "it's about the will, and your nephew." Nia's heart slammed so loudly she could hear it. Malik stepped in front of her on instinct, but the old man raised his hand again, calm as the sea before a storm. "Let them talk," he said. The first camera flash shattered the moment like glass. Weeks earlier, before any ring or bouquet, Nia was just a tired girl counting coins under a flickering streetlight. Lagos had woken up to Harmattan that morning, dusty, cold air that slipped under clothes and clung to skin. She had skipped lunch to pay for a bus that broke down on the third mainland bridge, then trekked half the way to the market to sell fabric scraps and second-hand shirts. Her shoes had thin soles. Her phone had one crack and 5 missed calls from the landlord. She was behind on rent again. People pulled their coats tight and kept their heads low that night. The city glowed in patches, generator hum on one street, candlelight on the next. Nia tucked her scarf closer and hurried past the bus stop, then stopped. A figure was hunched on the bench, shivering. He wore a faded gray sweater over a white kaftan, and his bare feet were in rubber slippers too loose to hold in the cold. His hands shook as he tried to lift a sachet of water to his mouth. Nobody looked at him. A Kiki driver trundled by. A couple in matching hoodies laughed into their phones and crossed to the other side. A woman carrying Accra on a tray glanced once and kept walking. The cold pressed in like a wall. Nia took one step forward, then another. "Baba," she said softly, "are you okay?" The old man looked up. His eyes were sharp despite the cold, and the skin around them had the fine lines of someone who had smiled a lot once and stopped smiling lately. "Ah," he said, voice rasping. "My daughter. The night is strong." She pulled off her scarf and wrapped it around his shoulders before she could talk herself out of it. "Hold this. There's no shame in being cold." He tried to protest. No, keep it. I'll be fine," she said. She rubbed his arms the way her mother used to do when she had fever as a child. "Do you need to go somewhere? Where is your family?" He smiled a little. "Family is a word with many rooms." Then he coughed, a deep, rattling sound that bent him in half. Nia's eyes burned. She took the sachet from his hand and tore it with her teeth, cupping the edge to his mouth. He drank slowly, coughing again. She glanced at the road. No taxi. Her stomach pulled tight with fear. She didn't have money for a private ride. She barely had enough for dinner, and the landlord's message was a threat, not a reminder. "You can't stay here," she said. "There's a clinic 2 streets away. Or my aunt's kiosk. The shutters will block the wind." She hesitated. "I can stay with you until the night softens." "You would do that?" he asked, almost as if he were testing her. "Yes," she said, even though her toes were numb. A boy in a dusty school uniform passed and looked at them. "Auntie, leave him. He's always there," he said, and disappeared into the dark. A man in a leather jacket muttered, "The old ones like this sometimes pretend. Tomorrow they will curse you." Nia ignored them. She tugged the old man to his feet. He was light, too light. "Come." They shuffled to the kiosk. She lifted the metal shutter enough for them to slip under and settled him on a stack of burlap sacks that smelled like pepper and soap. She bought 2 steaming sachets of kunu from the woman down the street, using money she should have saved. One for him, one for her. He drank, hands steadier now. The world felt a little less cruel. "Thank you," he said at last. "What is your name?" "Nia," she said. "And you?" "People call me Chief," he said, with a wry smile that hinted at an old joke only he understood. It's a small name for a man with too many keys. He slipped a hand into his sweater and pulled out a simple brass key on a string. He held it up as if the dim light were enough to polish memory. A key can open a door, he said, but it can also open a person's true face. You have given me warmth with no promise in return. That is a key too. Nia laughed softly. Baba, it's just a scarf. And still, he said, you wrapped it around a stranger. They sat in companionable quiet for a while. The city's noise rose and fell. Nia's phone buzzed again. She didn't look. She didn't want this soft moment to be broken by the hard world. The old man cleared his throat. Where do you live? Makoko sighed, she said. My room is small. But I share food with my cousin when things are good. And when things are not good? He asked. God gives strength, she said, but her mouth tilted a little, the truth escaping at the edges. His eyes searched her face, the way a man reads an old newspaper to catch a story he missed. You remind me of someone, he said quietly. Your daughter? She guessed. He looked away. Something like that. Then, after a breath, if someone offered you a new life, would you take it? Even if it came with people who would not clap for you? Nia thought of the landlord, the crack in her phone, the price of rice, and the way some girls in the market looked at her second-hand shoes. If the new life came honest, she said, yes. The old man nodded as if he had been waiting for that answer. Good. He shifted on the sacks and to her surprise took her hand. His palm was rough but warm now. Nia, he said. Tomorrow morning if you come to the corner of Ogunlana and Igbosir, there is a gate painted green. Knock 3 times on the small door, not the big one. Ask for Mama T and tell her chief sent you. She will give you breakfast. And work. Nia blinked. Baba, are you sure? Yes, he said. Let me borrow your scarf until morning. I will return it with interest. She laughed. There is no interest on kindness. On the contrary, he said. Kindness multiplies. They talked until the cold pulled back a little and the sky lifted from black to deep blue. She helped him stand again. He seemed stronger. He squeezed her hand once more and then, before she could ask where he truly lived, he slipped out into the morning mist, moving with a surprising steadiness. Nia went home, slept 2 hours, washed her face in a plastic bowl, and took a danfo to Ogunlana. The green gate was there, exactly as he said. She knocked 3 times on the small door. A woman with arms like tree trunks and a headscarf tied the old way peered out. Yes. Chief sent me, Nia said, suddenly nervous. The woman's face changed. Enter. Inside, Nia found a courtyard filled with movement. Men carrying paint buckets, women counting tenants' receipts, a boy typing on a laptop. It looked like a small company had been poured into a family home. A board on the wall listed addresses and amounts. She recognized street names from across Lagos. Suralir, Yaba, Ajij, Ikorodu. Mama T pressed a cup of tea into her hands. You will learn to take calls, she said. Polite voice. Clean ledger. No corner cutting. Is this for real? Nia asked, laughing from shock. Mama T nodded. Chief likes to test people. He says the city wears masks. He looks for those who lift them gently. For 3 days, Nia learned. She answered complaints about burst pipes and printed receipts. She learned how to talk to angry tenants without raising her voice. She watched as envelopes were sealed, stamped, and sent. On the 4th morning, a clean car rolled into the courtyard. The door opened and the old man stepped out, bathed, well-dressed, a cane in his right hand, and a quiet authority around him as if the air made room for him without being asked. Nia froze. The others bowed their heads slightly. Mama T smiled, a rare, slow smile. You have met him already, she said to Nia. Now meet him properly. Chief Adeyemi, the old man said, holding out his hand. Some say I am one of the biggest landlords in Lagos. I say I am only a caretaker with too many keys. Nia's mind spun. She felt the blood rush to her face. The scarf she had wrapped around him was folded neatly over his arm. He placed it with ceremony into her hands. With interest, he said. What interest? She whispered, bewildered. He slipped a small velvet pouch into her palm. It was light but tight with something that clinked. Consider it the first door, he said, eyes warm. Then he turned to Malik, the young man who had stepped out of the passenger side, tall in a simple shirt and trousers, eyes kind but wary. My heir, the old man said softly. Fresh from Atlanta. A heart still in transit. Malik offered a shy smile. Hi, he said. Well, Malik. Nia's breath caught. She didn't understand all of it yet, but she felt the ground shift under her feet, like a bridge moving into place. Chief Adeyemi leaned on his cane and looked between them as if he were measuring a doorframe. "Nia," he said, "I told you kindness multiplies. Now let us see what it becomes." Before she could answer, a horn blared outside. Mama T hurried to the gate. Voices rose. The door banged open and a man in a navy suit stepped in with 3 others, shoulders tight, eyes angry. He pointed straight at the old man. "Chief," he said loud and cold. "We need to talk about the properties on Bordelin, the terms of the will, and the girl." Everyone in the courtyard turned to Nia. The old man did not blink. "We will talk," he said. "But not before breakfast." He looked at Nia again, and in his eyes she saw a storm building and a shelter being offered at the same time. The man in the suit took a step forward, voice rising. "Then hear this first. If you try to give that girl even one house, I will make sure the law tears it apart." Silence gathered hard as rock. Malik moved closer to Nia, jaw clenched. Chief Adeyemi's fingers tightened on his cane. And then, with the whole courtyard holding its breath, the old man said, "Son, you may try." The navy-suited man's lips curled. "Don't call me son." Somewhere, a distant siren wailed. A shadow crossed the sun. Nia's fingers closed around the velvet pouch, feeling the metal edges within, and realized the first door had just opened into a hallway full of locked rooms, and people waiting to decide which one she was allowed to enter. The air in the courtyard thickened. Even the pigeons that usually perched on the roof tiles fell silent. Chief Adeyemi's voice was calm, but it carried a quiet thunder that made everyone freeze. "I said," he repeated, "you may try." The man in the navy suit clenched his jaw and folded his arms. His gold wristwatch caught the sun, flashing across his dark skin. "You've lost your senses, old man. You think you can just pick up some random girl from the street and throw her into our family's inheritance?" The chief leaned slightly on his cane. "Random girl?" He chuckled, a dry, humorless sound. "Bode, your problem is that you measure people by their clothes, not their character." Nia stood stiff beside Malik, not knowing whether to speak or shrink into the wall. She could feel every pair of eyes in the courtyard fixed on her. Bode, Chief's nephew, took a step forward. "Uncle, this is madness. You built all this with your blood and sweat. You think you can just hand it to a stranger? She's probably using you." "Enough," Chief Adeyemi said quietly. But the quietness was sharp. "If you knew what it meant to give without expecting anything in return, you'd understand why I choose differently." Mama T, sensing the tension boiling, quickly gestured for the workers to clear out. They moved silently, some sneaking glances at Nia, others whispering among themselves. Bode turned toward Malik with a bitter smile. "And you're just going to stand there and let him do this? Let some broke girl walk into your life and take everything meant for you?" Malik stepped forward. His voice was low but firm. "Bode, with all due respect, my grandfather's wealth isn't what I came back for. He said he wanted me to learn humility and find someone who understands what it means to build from nothing. Maybe this is his way of teaching me." Bode's laugh was sharp. "You think this is a lesson? This is witchcraft." Chief Adeyemi lifted his cane and tapped it lightly on the concrete floor. "Watch your tongue, Bode. You forget who feeds you." The younger man sneered, then spun on his heel and stormed out of the courtyard. His men followed, slamming the gate so hard the hinges rattled. Silence again. The chief sighed deeply, rubbing his forehead. Then he looked at Nia with an expression that was both weary and gentle. "My dear, I owe you an explanation." Nia swallowed hard. "Sir, I don't even understand what's happening. I just helped you that night because you were freezing. I didn't want anything in return." "I know," he said. "And that is exactly why you deserve more than you think." He motioned for them to follow him inside. The house was vast and old, marble floors, ancestral portraits, and ceilings so high they seemed to touch the clouds. Yet the air carried a quiet sorrow, like a place that had forgotten laughter. He led them into a small sitting room lined with books. "Sit," he said. "Let me tell you something not many know." Nia sat on the edge of a couch, hands clasped tight. Malik stood near the window, his brow furrowed. The chief began slowly. "I built this empire from dust. When I was your age, I sold cola nuts on the streets of Ibadan. Later I came to Lagos, worked as a security guard, then a driver. Every coin I made, I saved. Every humiliation I suffered, I remembered. I promised myself I'd build houses so my children would never sleep outside." He paused, eyes distant. "But what I didn't know was that when wealth comes, gratitude often leaves. My children and nephews only see my money now, not the man who bled for it." He looked at Nia. The night you found me, I wasn't testing anyone. I was broken. I just left a hospital where the doctors told me my heart was weak. None of my family came. I sat at that bus stop wondering if anyone in this city would see me as a man, not a title, not a wallet. His voice softened. You were the only one who did. Nia's throat tightened. Tears stung her eyes, but she blinked them away. Anyone would have done the same, she murmured. No, Chief Adeyemi said firmly. Everyone passed by. Only you stopped. He turned to Malik. That is why I called you back from America. You've lived too long among people who say they care but only for what they can gain. I wanted you to meet someone who gives from the heart. Malik looked at Nia, really looked at her now, the worn sneakers, the plain blouse, the sincerity that seemed to radiate even through her fear. A small, genuine smile touched his lips. I understand now, grandfather, he said softly. The chief nodded. Good. Because I am entrusting my legacy to both of you, not because of wealth, but because you must protect its soul. Nia's eyes widened. Sir, please, I can't. You can, he interrupted gently. And you will. He reached for a small wooden box on the shelf beside him and opened it. Inside were several keys, gold, silver, and brass. These, he said, open the doors to my properties across Lagos. But the real key I want to give you is something else. He took her hand and placed the brass key from that night into her palm again. This one, he said, belongs to my heart. Malik's gaze softened as Nia sat speechless. Before anyone could say another word, the chief coughed violently, gripping his chest. Malik rushed to his side. Grandpa. I'm fine, he whispered, though his breath was short. Just tired. Mama T appeared at the door instantly, panic flickering in her eyes. He needs rest, she said. Please out, both of you. They obeyed. Outside the room, Nia leaned against the wall, trembling. Malik turned to her, voice quiet but urgent. Thank you for saving him that night. If you hadn't, he might have died alone. She shook her head. I didn't do anything special. Yes, you did. He smiled faintly. In a city like this, kindness is rare. They stood in silence for a while, the faint sound of the chief coughing drifting through the door. Mama T came out minutes later, wiping her hands. He'll be okay, she said. But you two should go home for now. Come back tomorrow. Malik offered to drop Nia at her place. She hesitated but agreed. In his car, quiet, leather-smelling, far beyond anything she'd ever sat in, she stared out the window, lost in thought. When they reached her neighborhood, Malik looked around at the narrow streets and tin roofs. You really live here? She nodded, embarrassed. It's not much, but it's home. He smiled. Sometimes the smallest homes have the biggest hearts. Nia blushed, fumbling for the door handle. Thank you for the ride. Wait, he said. Can I see you again? Tomorrow after we check on Grandpa? Her heart skipped. Yes, she said before she could stop herself. He grinned. Then it's a date. She laughed nervously. Not a date, just visiting. Sure, he said, teasing. Just visiting. As the car drove away, Nia stood under the dim streetlight, the brass key still in her hand. She didn't know that at that exact moment, across town, Bode was sitting in a smoky bar, his phone on the table, whispering to a lawyer. She's not taking what's mine, he said coldly. If the old man wants to play games, I'll end them before he signs anything. The lawyer leaned forward. You mean? Bode nodded. Whatever it takes. That girl won't see another sunrise beside my inheritance. Meanwhile, back in her room, Nia placed the key under her pillow before sleeping, unaware that her act of kindness had set in motion a storm that would soon test every ounce of faith, courage, and love she had. And as the wind blew through her window that night, carrying the faint echo of the city's chaos, she dreamed of a gate painted green, and of a choice she didn't yet know she'd have to make. The next morning broke bright but restless. Lagos was awake early, Danfo's blaring horns, hawkers shouting prices, and the faint smell of fried akara cutting through the chill. Yet Nia's heart felt heavy, unsure whether yesterday had been a dream or a door opening to something bigger than she could comprehend. She clutched the brass key as she walked down her street, tucked safely inside her small purse. It gleamed faintly whenever sunlight caught its edge, like it carried a secret of its own. Her landlord's voice echoed in her mind. Nia, if I no see my rent by weekend, I go lock your door. She sighed. But somehow for the first time she wasn't afraid. When she reached Chief Adeyemi's compound, Mama T was already at the gate, arms crossed, her thick wrapper tied tightly around her waist. Ah, my daughter, she said, her tone softer than usual. Chief asked of you early this morning. Come in. Inside, the atmosphere was different. Calmer. The chief sat in the garden, his cane resting by his side, Malik standing behind him, wearing a white shirt that made him look almost princely. Nia greeted them shyly. "Good morning, Baba," she said, bowing slightly. He smiled warmly. "Nia, my dear. You came." "Of course," she said. "You told me to." The chief chuckled. "Most people only do what benefits them. But you do what is right." Malik handed her a tray of tea. "I made this for you," he said with a teasing grin. Nia raised her brows. "You made tea?" He shrugged. "Well, I poured hot water into a cup. That counts, right?" They laughed softly, a rare, easy moment. But the chief's expression soon turned thoughtful. "Nia, do you remember what I told you yesterday?" "Yes, Baba. You said kindness multiplies." "Good," he said. "Then it's time to see what it has multiplied into." He reached for a small envelope beside him and handed it to her. It was thick, sealed with a gold crest. "Take this to my lawyer, Mr. Oak at Broad Street Chambers. Tell him I sent you." She blinked, unsure. "Sir, I don't understand." "You will," he said simply. "And when you return, we shall talk about your future." Her fingers trembled as she took it. Malik offered to drive her, but the chief waved a hand. "Let her go alone. It's important she walks this road by herself first." Nia bowed her head respectfully and set off. The law firm was grand, glass walls, security guards, and a marble reception floor that gleamed like ice. The receptionist eyed her modest outfit suspiciously but said nothing. After some minutes, a tall man in his late 50s stepped out, wearing round glasses and a crisp blue suit. "You must be Miss Nia," he said. "Chief called me." "Yes, sir," she said, holding out the envelope. He slid it open carefully, reading the letter inside. His eyes widened slightly, then he looked at her again with newfound respect. "Do you know what this is?" She shook her head. "It's a legal authorization," he said slowly. "Chief Adeyemi has instructed that you be added as a signatory to his primary estate accounts." Nia froze. "Me?" "Yes," he said. "This means, in plain words, you will have authority over certain assets. Under his supervision, of course." Nia could barely breathe. "Sir, that must be a mistake. I'm not family." The lawyer smiled faintly. "You will be soon enough. I've known Chief for 30 years. He never acts without reason." He stood and extended his hand. "Congratulations, Miss Nia. Few people have earned that man's trust. Fewer still have touched his heart." By evening she returned to the mansion, her mind swirling. She found Chief Adeyemi in his study talking quietly with Malik. When they saw her, the chief gestured for her to sit. "Well?" he asked. Nia placed the document back on the table. "Sir, why me?" He smiled gently. "Because you remind me of who I was before money blinded me. You care. You serve. And you see people, not positions. That's what this family needs." Malik nodded. "Grandfather's right. It's not just about business, it's about rebuilding trust." The chief leaned forward. "I have one more request, my dear." "Anything, sir." He smiled faintly. "I want you to marry my grandson." The world tilted. Nia blinked, sure she'd misheard. "Sir, what did you say?" "I said," he repeated softly, "I want you and Malik to be one." The air thickened between them. Malik's eyes widened slightly, though his lips pressed into a soft, uncertain smile. "Grandfather," he began. But the chief raised his hand. "I'm not forcing you, either of you. But I have watched both your hearts. And I see what God sees: honesty, humility, and balance. I've seen enough greed destroy this family. Perhaps two hearts like yours can heal it." Nia stared at her hands, shaking. "Sir, I can't just." "You can," he interrupted kindly. "And if you agree, I'll make sure your lives are never the same again." The room fell silent except for the slow ticking of the wall clock. Malik looked at Nia, his eyes searching hers. "I know this is sudden," he said gently. "But I trust his judgment. And," he hesitated, smiling shyly, "I already like you more than anyone I've met in years." Nia's heart fluttered despite herself. She looked at Chief Adeyemi. "Can I think about it?" He nodded. "Of course. But not for too long. Time is one thing I don't have plenty of." That night, Nia couldn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment since that freezing night at the bus stop. The city outside roared with generators and the faraway beat of music, but inside her room only questions lived. Marry Malik? Be part of this family? Handle his estate? It sounded like a fairy tale, but in Lagos fairy tales often came with hidden prices. She rose from bed and went to the window. A shadow moved across the street. Her pulse quickened. Someone was watching. She reached for her curtain and peered out, just in time to see a car parked across the road. Inside, a man sat behind the wheel, the glow of a cigarette flaring briefly before dying out. Bode. Her heart jumped into her throat. He tilted his head toward her window, eyes dark and cold, then drove off into the night. The next morning Malik came early. "Grandpa wants us to visit his old property in Ikoyi," he said. "He says it's part of some tradition." They drove together in silence for a while, the tension between them soft but unspoken. Then Malik broke the silence. "Have you thought about what he said?" Nia nodded slightly. "Yes, but it's complicated. I barely know you, Malik. And your family doesn't even like me." He smiled. "Then maybe we can fix both problems. Get to know each other and change their minds." She laughed quietly. "You're very optimistic." "Maybe," he said. "But my grandfather believes in you. And I believe in his instincts." They reached the property, an old colonial mansion covered in vines and memories. The chief's driver opened the gate and they stepped out. Inside, dust covered everything, but there was a sense of deep history. The chief's voice echoed faintly behind them as he arrived in another car, leaning on his cane. "This," he said, "was my first house. The beginning of it all. Today I give it to both of you." Nia froze. "What?" He smiled softly. "Call it a wedding gift in advance." Before they could respond, a loud bang echoed from the back door. Malik turned sharply. "Who's there?" No answer. Then in the next moment the door burst open. Bode stormed in with two men behind him. "You've gone mad, uncle," he shouted. "You're giving everything to these strangers?" The chief stood tall despite his frailty. "Bode, if you open your mouth again with such disrespect, I will disown you before the law does." Bode pointed at Nia, rage twisting his face. "She's manipulating you. She's after your money and I will prove it." Malik stepped forward. "Enough, Bode." The tension snapped like a wire. One of Bode's men lunged, grabbing Nia's bag. Malik shoved him back, chaos exploding in seconds. The chief shouted for them to stop, but Bode's fury only grew. "You'll regret this," he yelled as he stormed out. "All of you." Nia stood trembling, clutching the key to her chest as Chief Adeyemi's voice echoed softly. "Some people only see gold, my child. But you," he smiled faintly, "you saw a man." She didn't know whether to cry or run, but she knew one thing. Her life had just crossed a line that could never be undone. Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. Also, let us know where you're watching from. We love hearing from all our amazing viewers across Africa, the US and beyond. Globe showing Europe, Africa. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button, like this video and share it so more people can enjoy stories like this one. Rain began to fall heavily that night, the kind of Lagos rain that drums on rooftops and drowns every other sound. The mansion lights flickered as thunder rolled through the sky. Nia couldn't sleep. She sat by the window in her guest room, staring out into the storm, watching lightning slice the darkness in white flashes. Her mind kept replaying the scene at the old house. Bode's anger, the men's aggression, the chief's calm defiance, and Malik's bravery when he stood between her and danger. She pressed her fingers against her chest where her heart wouldn't stop pounding. Was she really ready for this life? The door creaked open behind her. "Nia?" She turned. Malik stood there in casual clothes, his shirt sleeves rolled, his face tired but kind. "You're awake too?" he asked. She nodded. "I couldn't sleep." He walked closer and leaned on the window beside her. "I guess you're realizing now that being part of my family isn't exactly a fairy tale." Nia managed a faint smile. "You could say that again." He looked out at the rain. "Bode's always been like that. He believes everything in this family belongs to him. Grandpa trusted him once, but he turned greedy. He was supposed to manage one of the estates, but money started missing and he blamed everyone else." Nia frowned. "That's sad. Family should protect, not destroy." Malik nodded slowly. "You're right. That's why Grandpa admires you. You do things expecting nothing back. That's rare around here." She looked at him for a moment. "And what about you, Malik? What do you expect?" He turned to her then, his eyes soft but honest. "Right now? I expect to keep you safe." The words hit her heart like thunder outside. They didn't speak for a while after that. Just the sound of rain filled the silence. The next morning the chief called both of them to his study. His complexion looked pale and he coughed often, though he tried to hide it. "My children," he said, Yesterday was ugly, but I will not let greed destroy this family. I've called my lawyer. My will must be changed immediately. Malik tensed. Grandfather, you should rest. No, Chief Adeyemi said firmly. I will rest when I'm certain the right people will guard my legacy. Nia, he turned to her, you have the kind of heart I prayed one of my own children would have. I've decided that once you and Malik are wed, you'll both be in charge of all my estates and tenants. Nia's jaw dropped. Sir, this is too much. I can't accept that kind of responsibility. He smiled weakly. You already did the hardest part, my dear. You cared when you had nothing to gain. Tears burned Nia's eyes. She knelt down in respect, holding his frail hands. Thank you, sir. I promise to never disappoint you. He smiled, but his breathing grew shallow. I know, child. I know. Later that day, Malik drove her home so she could pack a few things. They planned to move her into a guest house near the chief's estate to keep her safe. But as they approached her street, they noticed something strange. The front door of her small apartment hung wide open, swaying in the wind. Malik parked sharply. Stay here, he said, stepping out. No, wait, Nia started, but it was too late. He entered the room first, scanning quickly. Her few belongings, clothes, a bucket, a small framed photo of her late parents, were scattered across the floor. Drawers overturned. The place had been searched. Nia stood in the doorway, her heart racing. Who would do this? Malik frowned deeply. Someone looking for something. Did you tell anyone about the chief's will? Or the key? Her eyes widened. The key. She rushed to her bed and flipped her pillow. The brass key was gone. Malik cursed under his breath. It's Bode. It has to be. But how would he know? Someone in the house may have told him, Malik said grimly. Grandfather's staff isn't all loyal. Bode's been bribing people for years. Nia sank to the floor, holding her head. Malik, this is my fault. I should have hidden it better. He knelt beside her. Hey, don't say that. You didn't ask for any of this. We'll get it back. Their eyes met, close, intense, wordless. For a brief second, the chaos outside didn't exist. Then Malik stood abruptly. Come on. We can't stay here. He might come back. They left immediately, heading straight for the chief's compound. But when they arrived, Mama T met them at the gate, panic written across her face. Where have you two been? She cried. Chief collapsed an hour ago. Nia's legs went weak. What? They took him to St. Gregory's Hospital. Malik didn't wait another second. He grabbed Nia's hand and ran back to the car. The drive to the hospital was a blur of traffic, honking, and prayers muttered under breath. At the emergency ward, nurses rushed around, and the sharp smell of antiseptic filled the air. A doctor finally stepped out, adjusting his stethoscope. Are you family? He asked. Yes, Malik said quickly. How is he? The doctor sighed. His condition is serious. His heart is weak, too weak. He keeps asking for both of you. They were allowed in briefly. Chief Adeyemi lay on the hospital bed, oxygen tubes in his nose, monitors beeping softly. His hand trembled as he reached out. My children, he whispered. Nia took his hand gently. We're here, Baba. You'll be fine. He gave a faint smile. Don't let them take what is yours. The key, it must not leave your hands. Her eyes filled with tears. They took it, Baba. Someone broke into my house. His eyelids fluttered. Then, they have started. Be strong, Nia. Promise me, you will not give up. I promise, she said through tears. He looked at Malik next. Protect her. No matter what it costs. Malik nodded firmly. I will, grandfather. The chief smiled faintly, then coughed hard. Nurses hurried in, urging them to leave. As they were ushered out, Malik's grip on Nia's hand tightened. Outside, thunder rolled again, a warning from the heavens. That night, the city seemed heavier. News spread fast that Chief Adeyemi had been hospitalized. Bode appeared on a late-night TV program, pretending to be heartbroken. My uncle has always been a pillar to our family, he told reporters, crocodile tears in his eyes. We pray for his recovery. But behind the scenes he was making calls. Find that key, he told his men. It unlocks the vault in Ikoyi. Inside is the master will. Without it, the old man can't transfer a thing. Meanwhile, in a small hospital cafeteria, Nia sat with her head in her hands. Malik sat beside her, silent. This is my fault, she said again, voice breaking. If I hadn't helped him that night, none of this would have happened. Malik turned sharply toward her. Don't say that. You saved his life then, and now you'll save his legacy. He believes in you, Nia. So do I. Her eyes met his, searching for hope. His words held something steady, something she could hold on to. Then we fight, she said quietly. He nodded. Together. And as the rain began again outside, both of them silently vowed that no matter what Bode planned next, they wouldn't let kindness, the one thing that brought them together, be destroyed by greed. But neither of them knew that at that very hour, a shadowy figure was slipping into the hospital's power room, cutting wires quietly, and that by morning, something far darker would shake everything they thought they knew. The power went out at exactly 2:13 a.m. The hospital plunged into darkness. The hum of machines stopped. Monitors fell silent. Nurses shouted in confusion as emergency lights flickered on and off like dying candles. Nia jolted awake from the chair beside Malik in the waiting area. "What's happening?" she whispered, fear crawling up her spine. Malik was already on his feet. The backup generator should have kicked in by now. But it hadn't. A nurse ran past, panic in her eyes. "Someone's tampered with the generator." Malik's stomach dropped. "Bode." He turned to Nia. "Stay here." "Malik, no," she called, but he was already gone, sprinting down the hall toward the emergency ward where Chief Adeyemi lay. The corridor was half dark, lit only by the weak red glow of the exit lights. Nia followed anyway, heart pounding so loud it drowned every sound around her. She could barely breathe as she rounded the corner, and stopped dead. Two men in black were at the door to the chief's ward. One was fiddling with the lock, the other keeping watch. "Open the door quietly," one hissed. "We grab the briefcase and leave." Nia's blood froze. She recognized the one keeping watch, the same man who had broken into her apartment. Before she could move, Malik appeared behind them, grabbing one by the collar and slamming him against the wall. The other spun around with a knife. Nia screamed. Malik dodged, his fist connecting with the man's jaw. The knife clattered to the floor. "Get away from him," Malik shouted, shoving the man aside. The first thug pushed him back, landing a punch to Malik's ribs. Nia's eyes darted around, then she saw a mop leaning by the wall. She grabbed it without thinking and swung it as hard as she could. It cracked across the man's shoulder. He cursed in pain. Malik tackled the other one to the floor. Within seconds, hospital security came rushing down the hall, sirens blaring now that the power was slowly returning. The two intruders fled, vanishing through the stairwell before they could be caught. Nia collapsed against the wall, trembling. Malik rushed to her. "Are you okay?" She nodded weakly. "What about your grandfather?" They burst into the ward. Chief Adeyemi was still there, weak but alive. The nurse at his side was shaking. "They tried to inject him with something," she said, voice breaking. "I stopped them just in time." Malik turned toward Nia, eyes dark. "This is no longer about property. They're trying to kill him." The next morning, the hospital was surrounded by police. Reporters swarmed the gates, shouting questions. Bode arrived in a convoy, pretending outrage, waving his hands like a grieving relative. "This is shameful," he cried. "How can my uncle's safety be compromised? Someone in this hospital must be responsible." Malik confronted him at the entrance. "Stop pretending. We know it was you." Bode smirked. "Do you have proof? Or are you just desperate because you think a street girl can take my place in this family?" Nia's hands curled into fists, but Malik held her back. "You'll answer for this soon enough," he said. Bode leaned in close. "Not before your precious Nia does. You don't know who you're dealing with, cousin." He brushed past them, heading inside, but Malik's phone buzzed at that exact moment. It was a message from the chief's lawyer, Mr. Oak. "Malik, urgent. Chief called me before collapsing last night. He mentioned a hidden envelope in his Ikoyi office safe, top drawer, labeled Project Unity. Get it before anyone else does." Malik looked at Nia. "We need to go. Now." "But the chief." "He's safe here for now," Malik said. "If we don't find that envelope, everything he built could fall into Bode's hands." Nia nodded. "Let's go." By noon they were driving toward Ikoyi. Rain clouds loomed again. Traffic was heavy, horns blaring, motorbikes weaving through like angry bees. When they reached the estate, Malik parked quietly behind the side gate. The building was old but grand, lined with ivy and guarded by two stone lions. Inside, the air smelled like dust and old wood. Malik moved fast, searching the study drawers until he found the safe, a small brown cabinet with a combination lock. "Do you know the code?" Nia asked. He hesitated. "He told me once years ago. Let me think." He turned the dial. 1, 5. The safe clicked open. Inside were files, sealed envelopes, and a small wooden box. On one envelope, bold letters read Project Unity. Malik tore it open. Inside were several documents, a few old photos, and something that looked like a marriage certificate. Nia blinked. "What's that?" Malik unfolded it. "It's my grandfather's will rewritten." He scanned it quickly and his eyes widened. "He already signed it? This one lists you as co-beneficiary with me." Nia's heart stopped. "What? But I thought he was going to update it later." "He must have done it right after meeting you," Malik said. "He already planned this." Before they could process it, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hall. Malik froze. "Someone's here." They hid behind the curtain just as the office door creaked open. Bode entered, 2 men behind him, the same thugs from the hospital. "Search everything," he barked. "That will is somewhere in here. Without it, the lawyer can't process anything." Malik and Nia exchanged a look. They couldn't move. One of the thugs started toward their side of the room. Nia's pulse thundered in her ears. The thug reached for the curtain. And just then, Malik's phone vibrated loudly. The sound echoed in the silence. "There," the man shouted. Malik grabbed Nia's hand. "Run." They bolted out the side door, racing down the hall as Bode yelled behind them. "Get them." The chase spilled into the backyard, their footsteps pounding against wet gravel. Malik pushed open a side gate, but one of the thugs grabbed Nia's arm. She struggled, screaming, and Malik swung a wooden pole from the wall, knocking the man away. They sprinted to the car, soaked and breathless. Malik started the engine just as Bode reached the gate, shouting curses drowned by the roar of thunder. As the car sped through the streets, Nia clutched the envelope tightly against her chest. "We have the proof now," she said between breaths. Malik nodded, eyes on the road. "Yes. But Bode won't stop until he destroys us both." They didn't know that at that very moment, back at the hospital, Chief Adeyemi had regained consciousness. He asked weakly for Mama T and whispered just 6 words before fainting again. "Tell them the truth about the will." That night, in a safe house Malik owned in Lekki, Nia sat by a small lamp, staring at the signed will again. Her name beside Malik's. Her heart beside his fate. "Why me, God?" she whispered. Malik walked in, drying his hair with a towel. "Because you saw a freezing old man and didn't walk away." She smiled faintly, looking up at him. "And now I'm caught in a storm because of it." He sat beside her. "Sometimes storms wash away everything fake so we can see what's real." For a moment, the world went quiet between them. But outside, the storm raged harder and lightning flashed, illuminating a black SUV parked across the street. Inside it, Bode watched the house through binoculars, a gun resting beside him. His lips curled. "If they won't give me the will," he muttered, "I'll take it from their graves." The next morning broke gray and heavy, like the sky itself was holding its breath. The safe house was silent except for the distant hum of Lagos traffic and the rhythmic ticking of the wall clock. Malik hadn't slept. He sat near the window, staring out through the curtain, the gun he had taken from the chief security guard resting on the table beside him. Nia walked in, wearing one of the oversized hoodies he'd given her. Her hair was loose, her eyes tired. "You didn't close your eyes all night," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Couldn't risk it. Bode knows we have the will now. He'll try again." Nia sighed, sitting across from him. How did kindness turn into all this? He looked at her carefully. "Because greed never sleeps, Nia. But you reminded me that goodness still exists in this city." She looked down, her voice barely a whisper. "I never meant to cause any trouble." Malik reached over and touched her hand. "You didn't? You gave my grandfather hope. And you gave me something too, someone to fight for." She looked up, startled. His gaze was steady, full of quiet sincerity. For a second, the chaos outside felt distant. But before she could respond, his phone rang. A known number. He hesitated, then answered. "Hello." A voice crackled through the speaker, deep, calm, and cold. "If you want your precious grandfather to live, bring the will to the old quarry outside Ikeja by noon. Come alone." Then the line went dead. Nia's heart raced. Who was that? Malik's jaw tightened. "Bode." She grabbed his arm. "We can't go. It's a trap." "I know," he said, standing. "But if we don't, he might hurt grandfather again." He tucked the gun into his waistband and picked up the envelope. "I'll go." Nia stepped in front of him, blocking his way. "Not without me. Nia, please." "I'm not staying here," she said firmly. "If something happens to you, I'd never forgive myself." He looked at her for a long moment, then exhaled. All right. But you stay in the car no matter what happens. Promise me. I promise. By noon, the sky was blazing hot. The abandoned quarry outside Ikeja was vast and dusty, surrounded by old machinery and broken trucks. Malik parked the car near a pile of rocks, scanning the area. Stay here, he said again. Don't move until I say. Nia nodded reluctantly, clutching her seatbelt. He stepped out, the envelope in one hand, his other resting near his waist where the gun was hidden. The wind blew sand across the ground. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then a black SUV rolled in slowly, stopping opposite him. The door opened and Bode stepped out, wearing a white native outfit and dark glasses. Two of his men followed, armed. Bode clapped slowly, mockingly. So the city's favorite good boy actually showed up. Malik's voice was cold. Where's my grandfather? Oh, he's fine. For now, Bode said, smirking. He's resting under very close supervision. But if you don't give me that will, he won't see tomorrow's sunrise. Malik raised the envelope. Let him go first. Bode laughed. You think you're in control here? He nodded to his men. Take it. The two armed men began walking toward Malik. He backed away slightly, eyes darting between them. Then suddenly the sound of a car door slammed open behind him. Nia had stepped out. Nia, no. Malik shouted. She stood by the car, trembling but defiant. You're not taking anything. Bode's eyes widened in amusement. Ah, the famous Good Samaritan. The girl who melted the old man's heart. He sneered. Tell me, Nia, how much did he pay you to play saint? Her eyes flashed. I didn't need to be paid to be human. The slap came fast. Bode struck her hard across the face. Malik roared in anger and swung at him, but one of the guards hit him from behind with a gun butt. He staggered, dazed. Bode grabbed the envelope from his hand, laughing. You could have saved yourself trouble. Now it's too late. He tore it open, pulling out the papers, but then froze. His grin faded. These are copies, he hissed. Malik smirked through the blood on his lip. You really think I'd bring the real will to you? Bode's face darkened with fury. Where is it? Malik wiped his mouth. Somewhere you'll never find it. Bode's nostrils flared. Kill them. The two thugs raised their guns. Nia screamed. But before they could shoot, a voice boomed from a nearby speaker. Drop your weapons. Police. Several SUVs roared into the quarry, sirens blaring. Dozens of officers poured out, guns drawn. Bode froze, realizing he'd been outplayed. Malik smiled grimly. Grandfather called me last night before you even reached us. He told me to record every threat and send it to the authorities. Bode turned to run, but officers surrounded him instantly. He was forced to the ground, handcuffed as he shouted, You can't do this. I'm family. Malik stood over him. Family doesn't try to kill their own. Nia ran to Malik, tears streaming down her cheeks. He caught her in his arms, holding her tightly as police led Bode away. It's over, he whispered. He'll never hurt anyone again. She sobbed against his chest. You scared me. He smiled faintly. You scared me first when you stepped out of that car. I had to, she said, pulling back to look at him. We promised to fight together, remember? He nodded, brushing a strand of hair from her face. And we will. Always. Later that evening they returned to the hospital. Chief Adeyemi was awake, weak but smiling. Malik placed the envelope on his lap. It's done, grandfather. Bode's in custody. The will is safe. The chief looked at both of them with watery eyes. God is good, he whispered. You've done well, my children. Nia sat beside him, holding his hand. Please rest now, Baba. You've been through too much. He smiled faintly. I will. But first, there is something I must say. He motioned for Malik to stand closer. You two have shown me what love and loyalty look like. You risked everything, not for money but for me. So tomorrow, in this very hospital chapel, you will become husband and wife. Nia's mouth fell open. Sir, we can't. You can, he said firmly. It is my last wish. Malik smiled softly at her. Looks like we're out of excuses. Nia laughed through her tears. I guess so. The chief squeezed their hands together. The world will know that kindness builds kingdoms where greed destroys them. That night, as Nia sat beside the sleeping chief, she thought about everything. The night she gave her scarf to a freezing man, the battles that followed, the danger, the faith, and now the peace. She looked out the window at the city lights blinking in the distance. Her life had truly changed forever, and she hadn't even asked for it. But outside the hospital gates, a shadow lingered near a black SUV. Inside, a figure lit a cigarette, not Bode this time but a stranger with a scar across his cheek. He held a phone to his ear. "Yes," he said quietly. "I saw what happened. But if they think this is over, they're wrong. There are more people after that will than they realize." He flicked the cigarette into the gutter, eyes glinting in the dark. The storm, it seemed, wasn't done yet. "If you were Nia, would you still agree to marry Malik knowing the dangers around his family? Or would you walk away after surviving all this chaos? Comment your thoughts below. We want to hear what you would do. Also, tell us where you're watching from. Globe showing Europe, Africa, and don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share to keep supporting more amazing African stories like this one. The morning sun slipped gently through the hospital blinds, warm and golden. For the first time in weeks, peace seemed to settle over the Adeyemi family. The police had confirmed Bode's charges: attempted murder, conspiracy, and fraud. The news spread fast across Lagos, and suddenly everyone was talking about the poor girl who helped a freezing old man and ended up changing her destiny. Nia stood by the window in a soft white gown the nurses had brought her, her reflection pale against the sunlight. Tomorrow she was to become Malik's wife, the same Malik who, just a month ago, was a stranger with no reason to notice her. Now he was everything. Chief Adeyemi had been moved to a private ward upstairs, still weak but smiling every time Nia visited. He had even managed to joke that she should practice smiling like a rich man's wife. But deep down Nia wasn't at ease. The stranger's words, the one with the scar outside the hospital, still lingered in her mind, even though she hadn't heard him. The world had quieted on the surface, but something beneath it still trembled. That afternoon Malik arrived with flowers. He looked calmer now, his dark eyes full of warmth. "For you," he said, handing them to her. She smiled. "You keep doing that." "What?" "Making me feel like I'm dreaming." He grinned. "Then let's not wake up yet." They sat together for a while. Nia watched him closely. "Do you think your family will accept this marriage?" He leaned back. "Some will, some won't. But I don't care anymore. Grandpa's approval is all I need." Nia nodded quietly. "I just don't want to be seen as the reason everything changed." He reached over and took her hand. "You are the reason everything changed. And that's not a bad thing." Her lips curved into a small smile. But before she could reply, a nurse rushed in. "Mr. Malik, please come quickly. Your grandfather." Malik didn't wait to hear more. He bolted out the door, Nia right behind him. They reached the chief's room to find doctors and nurses gathered around his bed. The monitor was beeping rapidly. His breathing was labored. "Grandfather." Malik rushed to his side. The chief's eyes fluttered open. "My son." "Nia." She grabbed his hand. "We're here, Baba. Please stay strong." He smiled weakly. It's near. But my heart is at peace. The world tested me, but God showed me grace through you." "Don't say that," Malik whispered, his voice trembling. "You're not leaving yet." The chief shook his head slowly. "Everything in life has its season. I have lived mine. Now it's your turn to live yours." He coughed, his chest rising and falling heavily. "Promise me. Promise that you'll keep this family's legacy pure. Let kindness, not greed, lead you." Both Malik and Nia nodded, tears streaming freely now. "I promise," Malik said. "So do I," Nia whispered, clutching his frail hand. The chief smiled again, the kind of smile that looked like a man seeing heaven's door open. "Then I can rest." The monitor let out a long, steady tone. Nia froze. Malik's breath caught in his throat. Nurses moved quickly, but there was nothing more to do. Chief Adeyemi, the freezing old man everyone once ignored, was gone. The funeral came days later. Lagos wept. Newspapers carried his picture, Chief Adeyemi, the kind landlord who changed lives. Hundreds attended the burial, but for Nia, it felt like the world had gone silent. She stood beside Malik, both dressed in black. The priest's voice echoed softly over the graveyard. "From dust we came, and to dust we shall return." Malik placed his grandfather's cane beside the coffin. Nia laid her scarf, the same one she had wrapped around him the night they met. People whispered as they left, "That girl, she's the one who helped him." Later that evening, the mansion was quiet. The lawyers had gathered in the study to read the final version of the will. Nia sat beside Malik, her fingers cold. Mr. Oak adjusted his glasses. "In the presence of all witnesses, we will now read Chief Adeyemi's last testament." The room fell still. "To my grandson Malik I leave all my business shares, my companies, and the legacy of the Adeyemi name. To Nia, who showed me love when the world turned its back, I leave my personal estates, Every house, shop, and land registered in my name. Murmurs filled the room. A few gasped. The lawyer continued, raising his voice over the noise. Together they shall form the Adeyemi Foundation, a home for orphans and widows across Lagos, to remind the city that kindness, not wealth, is what makes a person rich. By the time the will was done, half the room was in tears. Malik turned to Nia, eyes shining. He wanted you to have it all. She shook her head, crying. No, he wanted us to share it, to give back. They hugged, both sobbing quietly. But outside the mansion, under a tree by the gate, that same man with the scar watched from afar. He held a small envelope in his hand and muttered, "So this is how it ends, old man? You forgot those you wronged long ago." He lit another cigarette, his eyes narrowing. "Let's see how long your kindness protects them." He dropped the envelope at the gate and disappeared into the darkness. Moments later, a guard picked it up and carried it to the lawyer. "Sir, someone left this outside." Mr. Oak opened it, and his face drained of color. Inside was a faded photograph of a young Chief Adeyemi shaking hands with a foreign businessman and a handwritten note. "The land you built your empire on was never yours." He looked up, trembling slightly. "Malik? Nia, we might have a problem." That night, as the city lights blinked in the distance, Nia stood on the mansion balcony, the wind tugging gently at her dress. She didn't hear Malik step up behind her until he wrapped his arms around her waist. "You okay?" he asked softly. She nodded, leaning against him. "I just miss him." "So do I," he whispered. "But he left us everything we need, not just money but purpose." She smiled sadly. "Then we'll make him proud." He kissed her forehead. "Tomorrow we'll start building that foundation." But far away in an office downtown, the man with the scar placed a call to an unknown number. "They've read the will," he said. "Start the process. We're taking back that land, every square meter of it." A deep voice on the other end replied, "Make it clean. No mistakes this time." He hung up, smirking. Let's see how far kindness can go when the past comes calling. And with that, the quiet peace that had begun to form around Nia and Malik shattered once more, like glass beneath the heel of fate. The next morning began like a calm before a hurricane. Birds sang softly outside the Adeyemi mansion, but inside the air was tense. The lawyer's revelation from the previous night, "The land you built your empire on was never yours," echoed in everyone's mind. Nia stood in the grand dining hall, dressed simply in a white blouse and black skirt, staring at the folded note on the table. Malik paced restlessly near the window. "So what does it mean?" she asked finally, her voice trembling. Malik rubbed his temple. "It means someone wants to destroy everything my grandfather built. But I don't understand who." Mr. Oak entered then, holding the photograph and documents. "We traced the signature on the back of the picture," he said gravely. "The foreign man beside Chief Adeyemi is a British developer named Mr. Arthur Wells. He worked in Nigeria in the early 1980s. The note, it's in his handwriting." "So this man, he's saying the land wasn't legally sold?" Nia asked. "Exactly," Mr. Oak replied. "If this claim is true, it means the Adeyemi estates could be repossessed by the original company, or their descendants." Nia's stomach tightened. "All of them?" "Every single property," he said. Malik clenched his fists. "This is impossible. Grandfather was too careful to build on stolen land." Mr. Oak hesitated. "That's what worries me, Malik. He was careful, but he was also desperate in his youth. It's possible he trusted the wrong partner." The lawyer's words settled like heavy dust. For a moment no one spoke. Then Nia straightened her shoulders. "If the land was never his, we'll find the truth. And if someone is lying, we'll expose them." Malik nodded slowly, admiration flickering in his eyes. "We'll do it together." By afternoon they were driving to the state archives in Ikeja. The city buzzed around them, vendors, okadas, the blare of horns, but inside the car it was silent, tense. When they arrived, a gray-haired archivist named Madame Kike helped them comb through old records. She squinted at a faded folder labeled, "Wells Construction 1983. "Ah," she murmured. "Yes, this was a joint venture between a Mr. Arthur Wells and a young Nigerian entrepreneur, your grandfather, Mr. Malik Adeyemi." She flipped a page and frowned. "But according to this, the deal was never finalized. There was a dispute over ownership rights." Nia leaned forward. "Who won?" "No one," Madame Kike said. "The case was abandoned when Mr. Wells left Nigeria abruptly in 1985. It says here he disappeared. Some say he died in Ghana." "So how did grandfather get the land title?" Malik asked. Madame Kike shrugged. Perhaps someone forged the final paperwork. In those days, such things happened quietly. Malik exchanged a worried look with Nia. If someone forged it, the entire Adeyemi empire could collapse. Nia's voice was firm. Then we'll prove it wasn't your grandfather. They spent the next 2 days tracking old court files and business records. Every clue seemed to lead to another locked drawer, another missing signature, another faded truth. Then one evening, a courier arrived at the mansion with a sealed brown envelope addressed to Nia. No return name. She opened it carefully and gasped. Inside was a short letter. If you want to know the truth about the land, meet me at the Old Wells site, Marina Pier, tonight at 9 p.m. Come alone. Do not trust anyone. Malik frowned when she showed him. It's a trap. We're not going. But what if it's someone who knows what really happened? Nia said. If this can clear your grandfather's name, we have to try. He hesitated, torn between fear and hope. Then we go together. No arguments. Night fell thick and humid. The Marina Pier was almost deserted, waves crashing softly against the docks. A few broken streetlights flickered as Malik and Nia stepped cautiously into the open. Over here, a voice called from the shadows. A tall man stepped forward, the same scarred stranger who had left the envelope at the funeral. He looked older up close, his suit worn, his face marked by time and regret. You're the one who's been sending the threats, Malik said coldly. Who are you? The man sighed. My name is Daniel Wells. Arthur Wells was my father. Nia's breath caught. You're his son? He nodded. Yes. My father died in Ghana 30 years ago, but before he did, he left me letters. In them, he said he'd been cheated by a young partner named Adeyemi, your grandfather. That's a lie, Malik snapped. Daniel raised a hand. I thought so too. But last month I found this. He handed them an old contract, stamped, sealed, and clearly showing both men's signatures. But at the bottom, one page was torn, leaving the ownership clause missing. Daniel continued quietly, I've spent years searching. Then I found another file hidden in Lagos court archives, showing that after my father vanished, someone completed the transaction using a forged seal. That's why I came back, to find the truth. Nia's eyes filled with confusion. But we didn't forge anything. The chief never mentioned your father. Daniel's expression softened. That's what made me doubt my own story. Until I saw how much he helped people, how he gave back. That's not what a thief does. He looked at Nia. You changed my mind. I watched you on the news. You helped him when no one else would. My father always said, you'll know an honest heart when you see one. I see it now. Malik frowned. Then why send the threats? Daniel sighed. Because there are others involved, foreign investors who want to claim all Adeyemi's properties using my father's old documents. They forced me to play along. If I didn't, they'd ruin me too. Who are they? Nia asked. Before he could answer, a black van screeched to a halt behind them. Headlights flared. Men jumped out, guns raised. Get down? Malik shouted. Bullets tore through the air. Daniel fell to the ground, clutching his shoulder. Malik pulled Nia behind a cargo container. The men kept firing, shouting orders. This is what they wanted, Daniel gasped weakly. They can't let the truth come out. Stay with us. Nia cried. Malik fired back once, just enough to scare them off. After a tense minute, the attackers fled, their van screeching into the distance. Daniel coughed, blood staining his shirt. Take the file, take it to the press. It proves your grandfather never stole the land. My father signed the ownership to him before he vanished. He pressed the document into Nia's hand. End this, make things right. Then his eyes dimmed. Daniel Wells was gone. Days later, the news broke nationwide. The documents proved that Chief Adeyemi had legally purchased the land decades ago, and a foreign syndicate had been trying to reclaim it illegally. The Adeyemi Foundation was launched officially 2 weeks later, with Nia and Malik at its head. Orphans, widows, and poor students across Lagos were given new homes and scholarships. At the grand opening, Nia stood before the crowd, her voice steady but emotional. Many months ago, I was just a poor girl trying to survive the streets. I helped a freezing old man that night because I couldn't bear to see him suffer. I didn't know he was one of the wealthiest men in the city. I didn't know he would change my life forever. She paused, looking at Malik beside her. He taught me that kindness isn't weakness, it's the greatest power there is. And today we build on that truth. The audience clapped, some wiping tears. Malik stepped forward and took her hand. My grandfather used to say, keys don't just open doors, they open destinies. You were that key, Nia. she smiled through tears. And you were my door. The crowd erupted in applause as the ribbon was cut, marking a new beginning for both of them. High above the gathering, the sky broke open in soft sunlight, the same kind of light that had first fallen on Nia the morning she met the freezing old man. Somewhere, she imagined Chief Adeyemi watching with that warm smile, whispering the words that started it all. Kindness multiplies. And indeed it had. What lesson did you take away from Nia's story? That one small act of kindness can change a life, or that true wealth lies in compassion? Thought Balloon. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us where you're watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe so you never miss another powerful African story like this one. Globe showing Europe Africa Yellow Heart.